Well, hello there. My cultural project is titled The Golden Cage, and I will be looking at the wealth and power gap using Fuente Ovejuna. To start us off are two pictures. The first one on your left is Cordoba, Spain, which is the setting of where Fuente Ovejuna takes place. This is a modern day picture, but the play takes place in about 1417 during a war. The picture on the right is a production at the University of Michigan, and as you can see, the set crew did a good job of getting a close enough variation of what the town would look like then. Moving on, this play takes place during the Golden Age theater in Spain. Many of these shows were performed on wagons, and the wagons locked together to create the stage. Also, stages were in between buildings, as you can see in the picture located on your right, where the stages in between two buildings, and many of the tenants in these buildings would end up selling out their windows or their balconies for seats for the production, which in turn made the show money and it made the people money. Most of the plays during this time were either of a secular or Catholic nature. The Catholic Church at this time had a prominent role in Spain and still does to this day. And that is the major ideas of Golden Age theater. In terms of moving on to the playwright is Felix Lope de Vega. He was born in Madrid in 1562. He has 6 siblings. He wrote about 1,800 plays, including Fuente Ovejuna. One of the major themes in his works is the role of women and how strong and independent women are, which is in contrast to him being what many sources I read would say a womanizer. Many sources say that he had multiple wives, he had many lovers, many mistresses. So it seems rather odd that he was writing such strong and independent women while he was doing the same things to the women that happened in the play. In terms of the Golden Age Spain, he is considered one of the greatest playwrights of this era. Moving on to the play itself, a summary of the play is that I've written here is it is set in 1417. A young woman, Laurencia, is pursued by Commander Fernando Gomez de Guzman. However, his intentions are nothing but physical rape and abandonment. Laurencia is then courted by another villager named Frondoso, who has much better intentions with her. After a close call with Laurencia almost being raped in the woods, the commander vows to return to get revenge. And eventually he comes back and tries to abduct her, only for the town to rise together and end up killing the commander. The people of the town are eventually brought into the royal court and questioned, but the only answer that they gave was Fuente Ovejuna committed the act. In terms of one of the key monologues or key scenes from this is Laurencia's monologue to her father. I'll read you the first couple lines of this, and then I will play you a video of an actress performing this in Spanish. For many reasons, but chiefly because you let me be carried off by tyrants, by the traitors who rule over us, without attempting to avenge me. I was not yet Frondoso's wife. So you cannot say my husband should have defended me. This was my father's duty, as the wedding had not been consummated. Just as a nobleman about to purchase a jewel need not to pay for it if it is lost while he is still in the merchant's keeping. From under your very eyes, Fernand Gomez dragged me to his house, and you let the wolf carry me. You let the wolf carry the sheep like the cowardly shepherd you are. Can you conceive what I suffered at his hands? The daggers pointed at my breast, the flatteries, threats, insults, and lies used to make my chastity yield to his fierce desires. And that is just the first couple lines of this monologue. Next is this actress performing it in Spanish, which we're about to watch.
Muchas razones, y sean las principales. Me dejas que me roben tiranos sin que me vengues, traidores sin que me cobres. Aún no era yo de frondoso para que digas que tomé como marido venganza, que aquí por tu cuenta corre. En tanto que de las bodas no haya llegado la noche, del padre y no del marido. La obligación presupone que no me entreguen una joya aunque la robe. No ha de correr por mi cuenta las guardas ni los ladrones. Llevóme de hueso de los ojos a su casa, Fernán Gómez. Oveja al lobo dejáis como cobardes pastores. Qué dagas no vi en mi pecho. Qué desatinos enormes, qué palabras, qué amenazas, qué delitos atroces por rendir mi castidad a sus apetitos torpes. Los cabellos no lo dicen. No se ven aquí los golpes de la sangre y las señales. ¿Vosotros sois hombres nobles? ¿Vosotros padres y deudos? ¿Vosotros que no se rompen las entrañas de dolor de verme en tantos dolores? Ovejas sois. Bien lo dice de cuento vejuna el nombre. Dadme unas almas a mí. Sois piedras, pues sois bronces, pues sois jaspes, pues sois tigres. Tigres no. Que feroces siguen quien roba a sus hijos, matando a los cazadores, antes que entren por el mar y por sus ondas se arrojen. Liebres cobardes nacisteis, bárbaros sois, no españoles. Gallinas, vuestras mujeres dejáis que otros hombres gocen. Poneos ruecas en las cintas, para que os ceñís estoques. Vive Dios que de trazar. Solo mujeres cobren la honra de estos tiranos, la sangre de estos traidores. Os han de tirar piedras, hilanderas, maricones, amujeraos, cobardes, y que mañana os adornen nuestras tocas y basquiñas, solimanes y colores. Frondoso quiere ya, sin sentencia, sin pregones, colgar el comendador de la almena de una torre. Todos hará lo mismo. Yo me huelgo medio hombres, que quede sin mujeres esta viña dorada en torno a aquel siglo de Amazonas, eterno espanto del orbe.
And as you can see, what she's telling him is she's telling him how he's a coward and how she was abducted and beaten, but the men of the town didn't do anything of it, and the women will. The women will take the commander out. And moving on to some major points guiding my focus for this when I was reading were the ideas of wealth and power, looking at how this town doesn't really have any say, but they come together as a community and take power back from the commander and his corrupt ideas and his corruption of the royalty and the wealth. In terms of corruption, it's not only somebody doing something bad that has wealth, but it's also the wealthy not understanding what's happening to this poor town and them not really siding with them. In the end of the play, actually, the town doesn't get off because they did what was right. They get off because there's not enough evidence to prove that what they did wrong, because the entire town sticks together and says that Fuente Ovejuna did it, but that's the town, and they can't try the whole town. Some other points that if you feel so obliged to look at later in my sources are about the powerful women and independent women that you can see in this, and also the war that this is taking place during. I didn't do a whole lot of research about this, but if you would like to, I'm sure my sources can help you. Like I said, the wealth gap problems in the play. The wealth have no idea of the struggles of the poverty in the lower class. Wealth in this term equals power, which equals power over the classes lower than them. As you can see, even though the commander is not as high as the royalty, he still has power over the lesser people in the village, like Laurencia. The last idea that is promoted in this with the wealth gap is when there is too much power. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to be corrupt. It just means that they have a high tendency towards corruption. And how this relates to Spain today, according to a chart that I found, the wealth gap isn't really that far off from what we see in Fuente Ovejuna. With the 1% income being 30 times the income of the bottom 50%. The 50% bottom income is roughly around 12,000, while the 1% is over 300,000. This really doesn't make sense in terms of dispersed income. Another key difference in the play, though it is actually, the idea is actually presented in the play, is the idea of democracy. While Spain today is not a republic, it is a constitutional monarchy, which takes the idea of the monarchy and kind of combines it with democracy. So I think that idea, while it wasn't accomplished until 1975, is kind of present in the idea of this play, and I believe that this source is one of the ways that democracy ended up finding its way into Spain. Lastly, this situation between the wealth gap really hasn't gone away, like I said. It may have gotten a little better in terms of power and corruption, but it's still ever present in not only Spain, but many other societies. And which is why you actually end up having new adaptations of Fuente Ubahuna, which are set in today's time. So what it does is it takes the idea of the play and it takes the characters and reworks them into a society that it fits in much later. So it really could work. They edit a few things, but as you can see here, there is a link in my presentation that actually takes you into a production in 2017 that reworked this to a new adaptation. And that is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Fuente Ubahuna and a little bit of how the wealth gap has evolved. It not necessarily hasn't gotten better, but we see a little bit less of the corruption, but still a big difference in the top class income and the bottom class income. And lastly is my list of references. So thank you.